Good evening. Today, it's about trees. Why trees, in particular fruit trees? Because there's a fairly famous verse towards the end of the Pasha that deals with the protection of fruit trees. So here is the situation where you're waging war. And a tactic of war is you're going to lay siege to a city, and it's a good idea to destroy the trees around the periphery so that it makes it easier to lay that siege. It makes it easier to wage that war because the enemy hasn't got places to hide and so forth. So the Torah tells us the following. That if you're besieging the city, you must not destroy its trees, wielding the axe against them. You may eat from them, but you must not cut them down. So clearly, we're talking here about fruit trees. And then there's an interesting phrase, "Ki adam eitz hasadeh," is a trees of the human field um, to withdraw before you in the besieged city. But there seems to be a parallel drawn here between Adam and Eitz HaSadeh. If you read this in isolation, it's not a question. It's not Hashem saying, "Don't do it," because what's the tree done to you? It's not a man. But it reads here, "Ki Adam Eitz HaSadeh," which means that man is a tree in the field. And the Torah continues. If it's um, if it's not a fruit tree, then you may go ahead and cut it down. But again, if it's a fruit tree, you know that you can eat from it, then you may not cut it down, even if there is strategic value possibly in doing so. But non-fruit trees, we come back to the second verse, you may go right ahead and have them. And this takes us to Halacha, the Rambam, who tells us in the laws of wars in Kings, um, we should not cut down fruit trees outside a city, nor prevent an irrigation, a ditch from bringing water to them so they dry up. As it says in that parsha, Deuteronomy 20:19, do not destroy its trees. And anyone who cuts down such a tree, well, not very good. And Rambam says clearly, this doesn't apply only in the siege, but in all situations. Anyone who cuts down a fruit tree with destructive intent should be punished. Nevertheless, a fruit tree may be cut down if it causes damage to other trees or to fields belonging to others, or if a high price could be received for its wood. The Torah only prohibited cutting down a tree with, well, that's missing here from the bottom of the screen, so I'm not sure what that meant. I must just tell you, this was some years ago. We had some major renovations to the garden in the shul right behind me here. And we had the landscapers come in, and they're dealing with the chairman of the shul and whatever subcommittee was involved. And then I said, "Look, I need to meet with the landscape artist." And those are the two top guys in Johannesburg, well known for the call themselves Gardens in Wonderland. And they were most upset about being, summoned to my office with me scrutinizing their drawings. And I said, look, there's a Jewish law that says you may not cut down fruit trees. So I see here that your plan, involves this and that. There's a lemon tree, it's staying. There's the avocado tree, it's staying. And you're going to have to kind of redraw by keeping those fruit trees exactly where they are. And they were absolutely horrified. Of course, they've gotten the contract under any other circumstances. So, they did what they were supposed to. We did discover that there were three big trees that were actually palm trees that used to supply schach for the shul and for the entire neighborhood. And those trees were actually threatening the foundations of a Simon Cooper Hall, as were some avocado trees also alongside that side. And so those had to go because they were, threatening the foundations. So it's quite a strict law that one is not allowed to cut down fruit trees. But then Rambam says it goes. Obviously, it's not a fruit tree, then one may cut it down, or a fruit tree that is bearing, very little, or very slight yield. It even gives you, an amount. If it's less than a quarter of a cover of olives, or a date palm that yields a cover of dates, then it may not be cut out. Sorry, a quarter of a cover of olives or a cover of dates. I'm not sure how much a cover is, but that can be ascertained. Then you can cut them down. If it's less than that, more than that, you got to leave the tree. And Rambam says not trees alone, but just destroying objects that are valuable in a destructive way, ruining food with destructive intent, that violates a command of Bal Tashchit, do not destroy, and one must refrain from doing this. So that's kind of the letter of the law. But then we find this verse quoted in the Talmud, and that's in Talmud of, sorry, got ahead of myself. Where is this metaphor between trees and humans found again? We have it. Apologies, there's somebody here who has not muted. But now we're good. So somebody, the comparison between humans and trees crops up again here, and that's famous words of Psalm 1, describing the Ashrei Ha'ish, the fortunate man, the happy man, who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, taken the path of the sinners, or joined the company of the insolent, but rather his teaching of the Torah is his delight, and he studies that day and night. And there, Tehillim compares him to a tree planted beside streams of water, yields fruit in its season, foliage never fades, and whatever it produces thrives. So we can see Tehillim picking up on that metaphor of Adam Eitz HaSadeh, of the man being a tree of the field. So it's beyond halacha, but there's also some kind of a connection between humans and trees. And we find that in this story of the Talmud. Talmud had Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Zera having a discussion, and Rabbi Zera wasn't feeling well. So he says, I cannot really get involved in, halachic discourse. So he said to him, well, tell us something of Agadah, something of less, strain intellectually. So he says to him, okay. Rabbi Yochanan said the following: what is the meaning of this verse? For a man is a tree of the field, that, as we know now, Deuteronomy 20:19, and the portion of Shavi at the end of this laning of Shabbos, and is man actually a tree of the field? What is the meaning of this verse? So Rabbi Zera says, let me explain to you. Earlier in this verse, it's written, you may eat of them, but you may not cut them down. The next verse says, you may destroy and cut them. So there's some trees you can cut and some you cannot. Well, fruit trees you can, and non-fruit trees, fruit trees you may not, and non-fruit trees you may. How so? So this is the comparison between human and tree. If a Torah scholar is worthy, then you may eat of them, but you may not cut them down. If he's not worthy, then you may destroy and cut down, meaning don't go learn from him. So Adam Eitz HaSadeh, we're saying there's fruit trees and there is non-fruit trees, and when you choose for yourself a master, make sure that he is worthy, and then eat of his fruit, that is, consume his teachings, absorb his knowledge. If he's not worthy, not bearing fruit, then stay away, as in the expression of the Torah, you may destroy non-fruit trees. There's another story in the Talmud, also in Talmud Tanit, a couple of pages earlier. And that's Rav Nachman and Rav Yitzchak, who kind of met somewhere and then they part ways and they're saying goodbye to each other. And Rav Nachman says to Rav Yitzchak, who is his master, give me a blessing. Rav Yitzchak says, okay, I'm going to give you a parable. It's like one is walking through the desert, he's hungry, tired, thirsty. Then he finds a tree whose fruit is sweet and the shade is pleasant and a stream of water flows beneath it. So he sits down, sits in the shade of the tree, eats from the fruit, he drinks from the water, and then he's done. He wants to go. And he says famous words, in fact, there are many songs that have been composed to those words. Ilan, Ilan, bama avarechecha. Tree, how should I bless you? If I say to you, fruit should be sweet, well, your fruits are sweet. If I say to you, may you have pleasant shade, you already have pleasant shade. If I bless you with a stream of water flowing beneath you, well, there's already a stream of water beneath you. Rather, I bless you as follows. May it be God's will that all saplings which they plant from you be like you. And so he says, so be it with you. How can I bless you? If I bless you with Torah, you have it. If I bless you with wealth, you have it. If I bless you with children, you have children. May it be Hashem's will that your offspring shall be like you. So we see this metaphor of the man-tree connection kind of being also used strongly here. What is the significance of this metaphor, mashal, as it's called in parables, as they are? What is the deeper significance of this? Well, there's so many ways in which we can learn lessons from tree and understand that parallel. If we look at a tree, the most important part of the tree is the fruit, probably in size the smallest. And if you look at a human being, the most important part of the human being is his Torah and mitzvot, is his observance, his spiritual stuff. It may not look like the most a person. You don't see their soul, you don't see their mitzvahs, you don't see the character. What you see is a body. That's what you see. That obscures it all. So when you look at a tree, you see a trunk. You see branches, you see leaves, and then somewhere in there are hidden the fruit. But those are the be-all, end-all of that tree. That's why it's there. That's why it was planted. That's why it's growing, and it's give fruit. And that's an important lesson in that, our real purpose is to give, and not just to be. If you think of, the trunk, the roots, the branches, and then the fruit. So when you think tree, you think trunk, you think maybe branches, you don't think fruit, because that's kind of the body of the individual, their soul, and the fruit that they bear, the contribution that they make to the world around them. But one part of the tree we don't see are the roots, and the roots are faith. The roots must be bathed in water. Water, we know, is a metaphor for Torah. So those roots have got to be well irrigated, well fed with water in order for them to draw the energy that they need to pump up, kind of allowed to be sapped up into the tree above. A tree that does not have solid roots, that doesn't have deep roots, is not going to withstand challenges. The first see some Cape Town, many Cape Town as the first southeaster, and the tree is gone because it's kind of it gets flattened down. Never mind the winter storms. We want those behind us now. And trees do uproot before. What's the reason why trees do uproot in southeasters or northwesters or whatever they may be? It's the fact that they're not rooted deeply enough, and therefore there aren't the strong foundations that allow them to withstand challenges that may come their way. A tree must be tended to, and this is something which when I lived in Cape Town I was always fascinated by. This is where is it? This is a tree, but it grows at an awkward angle. It's quite obvious what's happened here. It's been swept by the wind, blown by the wind, and because of that, it has grown, in that very awkward angle that is slightly uncomfortable for a tree if trees can feel discomfort. Look at this. The trees that are grouped together, they grow straight because they protect one another. And that's so, powerful as a lesson. A lonely tree alone cannot withstand the challenges. It blows in the wind. A tree that is part of a forest or a group of trees, by sticking together, we're much better equipped to deal with the storms that may threaten our survival and our existence in a spiritual sense. So what do you need to do? You need to look after trees well. You need to support them. And when a tree is young, this is what you have to do. You have to surround it with support. And this is so important for young trees. An older, more solid tree that's standing already can withstand the wind. But a young tree, if you're not going to protect it, if you're not going to surround it by care and love, and an older tree has got deep roots and it can look for its own nutrients, but the child, the sapling, has got to be nurtured, fed, given water, etc., and held straight and contained and looked after in order for it to grow strong, straight, and up. A tree needs to be also cleared of threats. So if you have a young sapling growing and you have surrounding it thorns and bushes, etc., that are going to hinder its growth, they're going to draw from the ground. So you want to clean the area and you want to make sure that the tree has enough space to go where he has to. And another metaphor for clearing the thorns and the bushes all around it is when we want to connect and grow spiritually. We have to kind of remove obstacles that stand in the way of our connection with the one above before we pray. We have a lengthy process of something called Psuke de Zimra. Before we say the Shema, before the Amidah, so in the morning, we make a bracha, Baruch Shamar, and we recite a series of psalms and other selections, and then we end with the Yishtabach, and only then do we actually go to the Shema and the Amidah. Psuke de Zimra normally translates as verses of praise. But the word lazamer, besides meaning to sing, also means Tov Lodot Hashem was Zamer L'Shem Chayil. It's good to sing to Hashem and to praise Hashem and to sing to Him. Famous Shabbos psalm that we say several times in the course of a Shabbos. But the word Zamer also means to uproot. To cleanse, to take away the obstacles. It's one of the processes in agriculture of removing that which shouldn't be there to give that which you intend to grow maximum potential. So when we talk about Psuke de Zimra, there are also verses of uprooting. You need to clear the cobwebs out. So that you can have the connection with Hashem. And those are all of the distractions, things that weigh you down, things that you're concerned about, the doubts that you have, you get rid of all that. And it's a powerful process to go through those psalms from Ashrei Shevetecha and all the way through until the end of the psalm. And I see those are verses that strengthen faith. Those are verses that help us appreciate the greatness of God and His bounty and His giving to the world. It describes nature. It's an unbelievable process. We just mumble through. Take the time to maybe, do that in a bit of more depth. Look at the English translation if you have one, and you'll see that there's a beautiful process that happens. And if you've really gone through it, you're a different person. You come in to shul, you sit down with your sitter, and and you got the world on your shoulders, and you got all these concerns and these worries and these appointments and these arrangements that you have to make, and these phone calls that are on your to-do list. And then as you go through that and you kind of meditate and get into the space of dealing with these verses that describe the greatness of creation, the greatness of God, and the kindness of God, and the miracles he performs, that all disappears. And suddenly you come out of the other side of Yishtabach, a changed, a different person altogether. I'd like to take this metaphor and the time that remains to a bit of a deeper level. And that is by questioning if this is the best metaphor for man. And let me share this with you. Here we are. This describes the four dimensions of creation as a whole. So from right to left, domain. Domain means the inanimate. We got a rock, a mountain, whatever that may be. Number two, at the next level up, we got Sameach, the plant world, the vegetable world, we got trees. The next level, we got Chai, that's the living creatures, and Medaber, which is a human, which has the ability of speaking and therefore is at a high level than all those other levels of creation. So, in the world, the inanimate, the stones in the mountains and the earth and so forth, that's the lowest level of creation, the least sophisticated. As we go here, we have the ability of growth. In fact, the word Tzomeach actually means it grows. So it has the ability of growing. It's still stuck in one place. It can't move because it's a plant. Chai is more sophisticated. It is able to walk around. There's a really certain level of intelligence, of instinct, of a nature. And then we get to the pinnacle of creation, which is a human being, which has the ability to obviously speak. That's what's called medaber, but also to think and to make intelligent choices. So if we were to compare men, obviously that's the mankind, to any element of creation, why choose this? Why choose Tzomeach, the growing, rather than Chai, which is a much higher and more sophisticated form of a level, a layer of creation? The answer is that in one sense, there's something more powerful about a tree than an animal that can roam. And that is that a tree symbolizes a connection and attachment to roots. That is that we're grounded in something that we cannot be separated from. So animals, they roam the earth, but that doesn't mean they're connected to it. They can move from one place to another. And they can remove themselves from the earth completely by jumping. In that moment, they're not connected to their source. One example given is fish, which have to be in the environment. You remove them from there, they can no longer function. But animals, that is the Chai, the living dimension, the layer of creation. That one is mobile. It can be any way. But there's something about the fact that a tree is rooted, and the metaphor is not humans are part of the plant world, they're like the plants, but the tree, how is that different? The tree remains. If you plant crops, even vegetables, you put them in the ground, and then there's growth. But then it disappears. In trees, the trees live for centuries and centuries, and even though they bear fruit, and then the following season they bear fruit again, but the tree remains rooted in its place for ages, and that's the reason why the Torah engages in this metaphor of comparing human beings to trees, to say the importance of remaining rooted and connected with your source and where you are coming from. If I come back to those four layers of creation, it's not just in the what they call the macrocosm of the world, but also in the macrocosm, and that is within us. We have those four dimensions. We have a domain, the inanimate. I would say that's the lowest functions of mankind, maybe the body. Tzomeach represents our emotions. Chai, the living, represents our ability to think, because we already have some level of intellect in animals, not as sophisticated, obviously, as in humans. So that's the ability to think. This is a metaphor. Medaber refers to the actual depth of the soul. So you have body, emotions, intellect, and soul. Now why is this important? Because we're emphasizing here the emotions that are, as I said, it's the tree. It's rooted. It's connected. Human emotions are very close to our essence because it's our nature. Our emotions control our own innate nature. And it's something that's very close. You can't move it, just like the tree cannot move from one spot to another. Human emotions are very strongly rooted and connected to the soul. And one of the difficult things is to change, one's innate nature. What we call the midot. They're there. You can try. You can try and utilize them in a positive way. If I think I've lost you here. There we go. If with if okay. So let me go back. Our emotions, they're kind of fixed. You can try and use them in a positive way. If you are, take each of your emotions and use them, in a positive way, whether it's intolerance or tolerance, whether it's kindness, or try and channel the emotions in a positive way. It's very difficult to change the emotions. On the other hand, what is our intellect? Our intellect is mobile. It's not fixed, because we can use our intellect to go in any direction that we want. We can process things that we don't agree with. We can process things. We can try to understand how things that are totally antithetical to us actually work. We can try and get into the head of our enemy, as the Israelis. They're very good at that, and understand intellectually things that are not part of us. So intellect, that's the chai, that's the animal that can roam, whereas the tree, that is very closely rooted to who we are. And the idea is that we take the intellect and we make this rule over the tree, the emotions, so that the emotions are controlled not by a self-eruption from inside our feelings, but by a brain that controls it from above. And I'm going to leave you with this last image here. You can move a tree. Under certain circumstances, it's possible to uproot the tree from the ground and replant it somewhere else. And sometimes a tree that is, obviously, if you know what you're doing and you've taken enough of the ground with it to replant it somewhere else, you are able to maybe make a tree that was planted in the wrong way, and you put it in the right position, and now it thrives and grows even more. That is possible. Likewise, it is possible, but it's not easy. It's difficult. And I remember coming to visit my in-laws, Aleichem Shalom. They lived on 14 Shirley Road. Across the road from them, the Bernards, Rabbi Bernard Aleichem Shalom, and Tibbetz Lacham Tov, his wife Joan had moved across the road at number 9 on the same street, and there was a very large tree that grew in the middle of their yard, and they didn't want it. It wasn't a fruit tree; it was a palm tree, but a non-fruit bearing one. But they both are great lovers of nature, and they wouldn't allow the tree to be chopped down. It was a huge tree. So one day I came to his in-laws, and the road was blocked, and there was this huge truck, and they were busy, removing the tree and lifting it up, like the picture you saw, on the hoist and on the crane, and putting it down on the truck, and they drove down. It took hours and hours and hours, and nobody could drive up and down the street because that truck obstructed everything. You have to know what you're doing. You have to be professional. Then you can uproot a tree and you can replant it somewhere else. So it is possible through mind control to change our nature, to uproot it, to kind of disconnect it from the place that it's at, where it's rooted in the soul, be the left side or the right side, and you're able to uproot it and replant it in the correct manner. But that's something that's very difficult, but something that we aim for, because the be-all of man is to the end-all of man is for intellect to rule emotions. It's not only that you control your emotions and don't allow them to erupt when they shouldn't or where they shouldn't, but it's also that through enough work on yourself, like a tree can be moved from one place to another, you're able to inherently change the depth of your emotions. Thank you. And Chodesh Tov to all.
Thank you.